ThoughtSource Consulting presents the Due Diligence Show. And now, from the Deal Room, please welcome your hosts, Andrew Baziski, Adam Jarks, and Luke Silcock.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Deal Room. We're here with a topic which is close to my heart. It's all about communicating deals and the sorts of things that we need to do both internally and externally to promote the fact that a deal is happening. Now, there are some legal aspects to this, as well as some, product aspects to it and market aspects and all sorts of things that need to be considered, not to mention people too.
So some of those initial communications are subject to close or subject to some other conditions. How do you cut through that and get a good message out?
There are some particular words that you have to use or you should use, and typically, depending on the deal size, there's a few different phases you go through at announcing. Normally, there's an announcement that's made about an LOI signed or a letter of intent, which means that we're pretty certain that a deal's going to go ahead, right? That's essentially what it means. But you talk about the future acquisition, you talk about closing the acquisition at a future time. So it's always the fact that the acquisition hasn't happened yet. And people tend to get that mixed up because they think, oh, this deal has been announced, it's done. Mm-hmm. It's actually not done, and things can go wrong between that point and close to stop a deal from happening. There's a lot of government regulations, board approvals, shareholder approvals, anti-competitive things that companies need to go through to make sure that everything is okay, and sometimes they can go bad. So really it's a pre-announce before a close is made, and closing can be anything from 2 days to months, or a year, depending on the size of the company. So, the language is important, and sometimes with the smaller deals, it will be an announce and close on the same day. So that can happen too on the smaller ones.
To find out all about the M&A services that the team at ThoughtSource offer, head over to our website at www.thoughtsourceconsulting.com.
So one of the things with comms is we're wanting to talk it up a bit, but what can you do in that space?
Right. So, every acquisition is seen as a positive for the acquirer, right? And, it's about expanding, it's about building, it's about a commitment to your company. You're investing in your company by spending typically X amount of million or hundreds of million or $1 billion. And so it's talked up in that regard. It's usually positioned in a way that you are bringing on additional revenue as well. So more customers, more revenue, great talent, wider teams that touch different regions that perhaps your company hasn't made it into before. They're all the sorts of. There's also quotes. People, you've got to quote the executives as well. That's there's a few tick boxes that we use. The CEO and the board members and that sort of thing. But yeah, typically it is a celebration. It is a very positively talked about thing.
It's news.
It is. It's news, but it's not negative news by any respect, particularly from press releases that are done. And that's what we're talking about here is press releases, particularly in the LOI phase where you're signing up to say, well, we're likely to do a deal.
Is there a particular sequence that you have to follow when you're going through all of these announcements?
Yeah, there's some specific order, more so with companies that are publicly listed, where you're very cautious about share price and markets and that sort of thing. So there is, and it varies depending on where you are, but you've got to give the right notice. There are blackout periods. There's all sorts of complications there. When it comes to acquiring private organisations or there's two types of acquisitions typically. There's either a share-based acquisition or an asset-based acquisition. And the share-based acquisition is when you're bringing on the company and entities and all that sort of thing. The assets is another thing. So you'll read that in press releases. XYZ has acquired the share or the assets of whatever the company is, and usually that's buying a technology. There's a benefit to that actually, and buying customers too. You get to remove all the complexity of their business.
To find out all about the M&A services that the team at ThoughtSource offer, head over to our website at www.thoughtsourceconsulting.com.
I think that's fascinating to recap on the story of getting the formal comms right, getting the announcements that go to the market, and so forth. One of the things around comms that fascinates me is getting it right down a couple of levels, and maybe when it impacts the customers. So in particular, and it gets the teams really excited about the Better Together story. So that's where the two companies come together and they're delivering, the goodies for the customer.
I think that is down the path. It's something that is more in the integration phase versus the deal making phase. One thing that is very delicate is dealing with the internal announcements and how it all fits with the company that's being taken over, but also the company that's acquiring. Because there are staff members that'll be asking, well, what about my job? What does this mean for me? Typically, that's what a lot of the questions are all about internally. People are thinking that way. But sales folks will want to know, how can it be sold? What does this mean for my number? How am I going to make my quota? All those sorts of things. So typically what will happen is you'll create an internal, it's a bit like a press release, but it's usually an email from the CEO. And frankly, it's something that is chewed on a lot by quite a few people as to how this gets positioned. The advice I'd give is don't overthink it. Don't polish the hell out of it, because people see through it. People are real. People are, employees and companies want to know about the raw news, and they don't want the politician's answer as to what's actually going on. So be real. The message from the CEO can talk about structure, can talk about products, can talk about opportunity, can talk about teams, but there needs to be some realism throughout all of that as to, okay, if it's not a completely positive story in terms of, resizing, changing teams around, reporting lines, whatever, talk a little bit about that. Don't be scared to. Being real with the employees will get a lot further than, giving the politician's answer. Typically what we'll do is split it off into two parts. There'll be an internal, actually there may even be three parts. So an internal employees communication that goes out, a channel partner under confidentiality agreement communication will go out as well. So that's out to partners of an organisation, which is they're more trusted, but I guess not as trusted. So more information is given to them. And then there'll be an FAQ created, and that's where the real detail is. And that helps employees field questions from other partners, from the media, from the public. Typically someone will be put on as point to deal with media and that sort of thing. But the large company, I've had situations where I've been briefing 5 to 10 people as to how to deal with the media side of it. Nice. And you've got to be able to give them the right answers and give them the right positioning so they say the right thing. So that's communicating the deal, communicating the excitement of the deal, both internally, both externally. There's a lot to do when it comes to doing an M&A project. Technology DD is a big thing, and it does encompass a lot of different areas. Really exciting to talk to you all about it. We're looking forward to bringing you our next episode, which will be really soon.
The Due Diligence Show is proudly created by the team at ThoughtSource Consulting, where we bring our years of deep experience in technology M&A transactions from around the world. To find out more about how we can help you, visit the website at www.thoughtsourceconsulting.com.